Welcome to What Would Education, where we aim to deliver evidence-informed teaching through teacher-led evaluation. This project is fully funded by the Richmond project to help us develop a national maths peer tutoring programme to support children in Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 with mathematics. So just to give you a bit of background on What Would Education. Will this work in my school? This is one of the key questions that we set out to answer in 2020 when we started What Would Education to help teachers to robustly test what works and what does not work for pupils in their schools. Most teachers are aware of the Education Endowment Foundation Teaching Learning Toolkit, which is an absolutely brilliant resource for schools. But this shows schools, on average, how something will work. But it doesn't answer the question, will this work in my school? So we developed What Would Education to help answer this question. So how do we help teachers to find out if something works? We use something called a micro RCT, which is a micro randomized control trial. So this is a simple, robust way to find out what works in your classroom. The first thing we ask you to do is to identify a group of target learners. The next thing is all the learners complete a pre-assessment task. This is to collect a baseline data to measure their starting points. We've then developed a teacher-friendly platform that then randomly allocates the students into two groups to ensure a fair comparison. So you then have the intervention group, which receives the intervention, in this case the 6 times 20 minutes peer tutoring sessions, and the comparison group will continue with normal typical practice. All learners then complete the post-assessment at the end of the trial. The data is then inputted into the What Would Teachers platform, which is fully anonymised, and it generates an impact report to show you how this has worked in your classroom. If it proves to be successful, you then open this up to the comparison group student, so they're not being withheld from the intervention. It's just slightly delayed to allow you to find out if this approach shows promise in your school. So that's all a micro RCT is. It's a simple way of allowing teachers to hopefully test how interventions work. One question we get asked is it fair? So is it ethical to withhold an intervention from the control group students? Well, the first thing that we do is that because of the micro, we're only withholding an intervention for a short period of time. So the pupils in the control group will have access to the intervention after the post-assessment has been completed. All pupils undertake teaching learning activities that are similar to usual practice in participating schools, and all data that's entered into the What Would Teachers platform is fully anonymised. So head teacher consent to participate is sufficient. Over the last few years, we've been developing What Would Teachers. This is a platform specifically designed to help educators to set up, implement and test interventions in your school. One of the biggest barriers we found when working with teachers is time. So we've streamlined this process so that most trials can be set up within 30 minutes of teachers watching the 3 tutorial videos to help you understand how to use the platform, the research evidence underpinning the intervention and how to implement this in your school. We then ask you to read the intervention protocol, which outlines the research question, design, sample, outcome measures and analysis. You then have a resource folder, which is downloadable with all the materials you need to run the evaluation in your school. And then we've got an automated trial wizard, which guides you through setting up the intervention, analyzes the data that you input and provides an impact report. So let's have a quick look at how this platform works. So once you've got the access code, you will see all of the peer tutoring trials which have been set up for the Richmond project. And then you select the trial that you want to run. It's just an example, and then you sign up. The first thing we ask you to do is to watch the welcome video, then to watch the intervention, and then the implementation. These take about 15 to 20 minutes maximum. You then download the research protocol. Which goes through everything that you're doing from a research point of view. And then you download the resource folder. You then click Get Started, and then you put in your start date and your end date for your trial. The next thing is put in the number of students that is your target. So for example, you might have 10 students who you want to include, and then you complete the pre-assessment task, which is in the resource folder. You then input the scores. If a student is missing, you just use NA. And then the one thing we ask you to do is then just to identify if they are free school meal status, and it allows us to do secondary analysis. Next thing is randomization. So you will then, in your tracking spreadsheet, allocate the random allocation to the student ID. And then the next thing you do is run the trial. So once you've run the trial, you then go and put in your post-test once you've done this. In the post-test, again included in the resource folder. And then you click Process Evaluation. And this is an important step as it allows us to understand what the control group students were doing, the time of day, for example, when you ran the peer tutoring, and any barriers that you encountered. And then you click Analyze. And this then generates an impact report that explains to you the percentage difference between the two groups, but it also gives you the effect size similar to the Education Endowment Foundation trials. So you can see from this the percentage change. You have the technical appendix for the effect sizes, and then the data that you've inputted. And then once you've finished your trial, it takes you back to the My Trial workspace. One important thing to note is that once you log back in to a trial, you only have to sign up to a trial once. You have your trial directories where you search for the trials, but once you've signed up, it will be in the My Trial workspace. So the main advice that we give teachers is that once you log back into What Work Teaches, you don't have to sign up to another trial. Please just go to the My Trial workspace, and then you can see from there that you just click to continue. So the advantage of micro RCTs is that from individual trials, we can get collective insight. So every single trial contributes to the evidence base. Positive and negative results from schools feed into the average, giving a true picture of what works, for whom, and in what context. So every single time a teacher replicates the evaluation, the data then aggregates together to give us the average effect size, and this helps us inform a national picture of how peer tutoring is working across the different key stages that we're working with, which is going to be like Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, and Key Stage 4. Finally, just moving on to data quality. Our mission is to create a teacher-led evidence base that professionals can use to help inform the decisions they make about teaching and learning in their school. Therefore, the evidence is only as good as the data that teachers input. So please ensure that you follow the random assignment and that the data you enter is valid. As fellow teachers replicate each evaluation, we aggregate the data to create a cumulative evidence base. Together, we can build something special in education and help improve learning based on evidence-informed decisions. And finally, when we all follow good data practices, we build a stronger evidence base that leads to better decisions and outcomes for all learners. Next steps. Next, you'll learn about the intervention you'll be evaluating as part of the Richmond Project National Maths Peer Tutoring Programme. So please move on to the second video.